2007 was a bittersweet year for the Mario Party community. We received 2 games in the series this year. First, Mario Party 8, a game that, despite some flaws, brought Mario Party's fun formula to the Wii, a console that made perfect sense for this type of game and was destined to be a hit. Then, later that year, we received Mario Party DS on the, well, Nintendo DS. Unfortunately though, Mario Party DS was the last game in the Mario Party series to be developed by Hudson Soft, the original developer of the series who has handled the creation of the past 9 games so far. So this is definitely a pivotal entry for the series in a lot of ways. So, does Mario Party DS close out the Hudson Soft era of the series with a bang, or with a whimper? Well, welcome back to Mark's Rec Room, where today we'll be covering Mario Party DS, the fun-sized finale to the Hudson Soft era. Mario Party DS is the second handheld game in the Mario Party series, which is already kind of strange on its face. I don't think that I'm breaking any new ground by saying that Mario Party is way more ideal on consoles since players can easily gather around a TV and play a game of Mario Party on one screen with only one console needed. On a handheld, that social experience is way tougher to replicate. Hudson Soft attempted this before with Mario Party Advance, which was a cute novelty and certainly tried its heart out, but ultimately it didn't really feel like a true Mario Party game because of the Game Boy Advance's very limited multiplayer functionalities. This led Mario Party Advance to need to rely very heavily on single-player content to provide enough value to players, which kind of undermined the whole idea of being a Mario Party game in the first place. However, this time around we're on the DS, which had a much better solution for multiplayer via DS download play. And the coolest part about this game is that you only need one copy of the game to experience all of its multiplayer content, whether you're playing with 1 friend or 3 friends. Since that experience is so unique, and since I'm a freak who's excessively dedicated to making this video as authentic as possible for some reason, all of the footage that you see in this video was recorded by me off of a real Nintendo DS, unless if I credit a source otherwise for specific examples. Mario Party DS is interesting because of its direct attachment to the DS and its unique features, and I wanted to make sure that I captured that in this video. So, without further ado, let's take a look back at Mario Party DS, this weird but charming little party game. Mario Party DS is really interesting to look back on because despite being on a handheld, it truly tries its hardest to match the console Mario Party experience on the go. Of course, there were some aspects that needed to be tweaked since players aren't all looking at the same screen, but for the most part, this game is super faithful at cramming an authentic Mario Party onto a DS cartridge. It also has some of its own ideas as well. Battle minigames still occur randomly, however the payouts were tweaked slightly. Instead of the usual 70-30% split between first and second place, Mario Party DS instead gives 65% to first place, 30% to second place, and 5% to third place. Not a huge change, but it is helpful for the player in third place to get some pity coins back. The dueling mechanics are also slightly tweaked from the previous 2 games. In Mario Party 7 and 8, players would initiate a duel and then immediately play the minigame with no set stakes, and then the winner of the minigame would spin a wheel to see what they get. Personally, I dislike this method of wagering in duels. I preferred when Mario Party gave the plaintiff the opportunity to choose their wager and bet it all in a minigame against another player to make things super tense. But removing these stakes and having players blindly play the minigame and then spin a wheel afterwards makes duels way less interesting and also less impactful. Mario Party DS sadly is closer to the dueling mechanics of 7 and 8, but it does make 2 key changes that I think make DS's duels slightly better. 1, the wager is decided before the minigame starts rather than after, and 2, it removes the possibility for the duel to mean nothing. Spinning the wheel before the minigame begins is a good change because the duel is going to be way more tense when players know what's at stake going into the minigame, even if they themselves didn't choose what to wager. There's more pressure during the minigame when you know going into it how many of your coins and stars are on the line. And sometimes in Mario Party 7 and 8, the winner could roll that the duel was worth literally nothing, and the last few minutes picking an opponent and playing a minigame were worthless, which was an obvious waste of the player's time, and Mario Party DS did the right thing by removing it. Dueling in Mario Party DS isn't the best the series has seen so far. You still no longer duel by landing on the same space as another player and instead have to only land on the duel space, but it has definitely been improved over the past couple of entries. Finally, the last 5 turns event, now dubbed the Final 5 Frenzy, which I like a whole lot, has also been changed from the previous games. The last 5 turns event has gone through a lot of changes over the years. In Mario Parties 4 and 5, a special rule would be added to the board to shake things up, like red and blue spaces being doubled or all spaces getting a capsule event on them. system. Mario Party 6 and 7 changed this a bit by adding some events that just benefit last place by giving them free coins or free orb spaces, and Mario Party 8 really changes this by just giving the player in last place a Duelo candy or 30 coins depending on the board, and then severely inflating the economy. Mario Party DS goes headlong in the 6 and 7 route by making the Final 5 Frenzy give something to last place most of the time. The only one that affects all players equally is by reducing the star price to 5 coins, but otherwise last place can receive 20 free coins from Bowser, 10 coins from everybody else, or even a free star, which is absolutely insane. This is honestly so good for last place that if you're in third, it might honestly be a good idea to try to drop to fourth by the last 5 turns to try to roll something good for yourself. I personally think that this might be a little bit too good to just give away at the last 5 turns, and I still maintain that events that generally affect all players equally are ideal for the last 5 turns event. The Final 5 Frenzy isn't irredeemably bad or anything. I personally think that it's better than Chump Charity just because it's more interesting and can sway the game more, but it's not my personal favorite last 5 turns event. Mario Party DS also marks the return of the hidden block, a mechanic that was last seen in Mario Party 5, and they're back with a vengeance. Hidden blocks are insanely chaotic in this game since they can spawn one of 5 different rewards. It's still possible to get free coins and a free star like in previous games, but you can also get an inventory full of items, which is really good and calls back to Mario Party 3. However, the last 2 options are entirely new to Mario Party DS. You can also have the opportunity to get not just one, but multiple stars from a single hidden block. Up to 3. This is honestly insane. It's obviously very rare, but can completely sway the game, almost a little too much. On the opposite side of that coin, you can also receive a star, which will take away a star, which is brutal and a little unfair. Mario Party DS giveth and Mario Party DS taketh away, I suppose. The return of the hidden block was unexpected, but it really returned in a big way. I wish that they weren't so intense, but I kind of like how much they stand out compared to the ways that the other games implement hidden blocks. The space types in Mario Party DS weren't changed too much from Mario Party 8. There are still a total of 5 space types available on the board, however the Donkey Kong space was removed entirely and the Bowser space functions similarly to how it did in previous Mario Party games. It's kinda sad seeing the DK space go away since it worked really well juxtaposed against the Bowser spaces, but given what happens to DK in Mario Party DS's story, not having a space seems to be the least of his worries. The Bowser space has a few different events that can occur. Gimme Charity forces the player to give 10 coins to every opponent. Gimme Equality is essentially a Bowser revolution, redistributing the wealth evenly amongst the players. Gimme Coins forces the player to, well, give Bowser 20 coins. And Gimme Stars forces the player to take a wild guess. If you've watched my other Mario Party videos, you probably already know that I don't love it when Bowser can just steal a purchase star out of the economy just because you landed on his space. But to be honest, in DS it isn't quite as bad for reasons I'll get into later. I'll be honest, after the kinda underwhelming way that Mario Party 8 handled its Bowser spaces, at least in my opinion, I'm happy to have this version of the Bowser space back. It's impactful, its events are quick, and it has the potential to affect all players, which is really good. Gimme Equality especially is a good event that adds some teeth-chattering tension to Bowser spaces, since players who have been stockpiling money may be forced to give up a lot of that money to their opponents. The other space that was removed from Mario Party 8 was the Lucky space.
Let's go! That's what I'm talking about, baby! Woo!
I think that this change was for the best. I'll spare you the long explanation of why I dislike the Lucky space so much. Feel free to check out my video on Mario Party 8 if you're curious about that, but I definitely think that Mario Party DS is better without it. Instead, Mario Party DS has the Friendship space for the majority of the game, then by the last 5 turns, the Friendship spaces turn into Duel spaces. On the Friendship space, you and an opponent of your choice will receive 5 coins apiece. Yep, that's really it. I'll be honest, I've got no particular feelings for the Friendship space. It almost always just means that you and the player in last place will receive 5 coins, since the player who lands on the Friendship space probably wants to give money to the person who is threatening them the least at that moment. It's fine, I guess. I just don't really think that it does much for the board gameplay, neither right nor wrong. I do like the juxtaposition of turning the friendship spaces into duel spaces towards the end of the game though, as if everybody's friendships and alliances are turning against each other as the game approaches its final moments. Mario Party DS has a kind of minimal amount of space types here, similar to Mario Party 8 before it, and I definitely miss series staple board events like Boo Hudson Chance Time, because I really do think that they spice the gameplay up in more interesting ways. However, Mario Party DS is a bit different from the other games in one specific way that makes this simplicity a little bit easier to understand, and that is the size of the boards. The boards in Mario Party DS are noticeably smaller, which makes sense since this game is, you know, on a handheld. For reference, Mario Party 8 was previously the game with the smallest average of spaces at 61 1/3 spaces per board, but Mario Party DS smashes that record with just 46.2 spaces per board on average. At the risk of sounding like a broken record, it makes sense that these boards would be so much smaller since this is a smaller game on a smaller handheld. As I'm sure you can expect, this also means that the boards in Mario Party DS also have a lower plane space density than the games that precede it, with Kamek's Library having the lowest density of blue and red spaces in any board of the series so far, with just under 48% of its spaces made up by blue and red spaces. With this data in mind, it makes sense that there are fewer space types in this game compared to the larger console games, since Mario Parties 2 through 4 especially have boards that are more than double the size of the boards in Mario Party DS. So, naturally, there are more space types and events on these much larger boards. However, I think that this leads Mario Party DS's boards to feel very dense with interesting events because even though there are fewer space types, these boards are way more generous with the amount of non-plane spaces that they include on the board. Again, to compare, Mario Party DS's boards are significantly smaller than Mario Party 8's, but somehow Mario Party DS's boards have more happening spaces than 8's boards. Toadette's Music Room, the board with the lowest amount of happening spaces in DS, has the same amount of happening spaces as Bowser's Warped Orbit, the board with the most happening spaces in Mario Party 8. I think that this gives DS's boards a more hectic feel, but their smaller nature can raise some concerns, which I'll really get into when we discuss each board individually. So, the boards may be smaller compared to its console counterparts due to its handheld nature, but I do think that this begs this question: how does this affect other systems in the game, like, say, its item system? Mario Party DS is at a bit of an interesting crossroads here, with lots of Mario Party history to look back on. Does it return to its roots and use an item system based upon consumables in line with Mario Parties 2 through 4, especially considering that 8 took a similar approach? Or does it use something like the orb system that allows players to set traps despite less real estate to customize due to the smaller boards? Well, Mario Party DS says, why not both? Yeah, so there are technically two different item systems at play here: items and hexes. Items are purchasable in the shop and through board events, and they function exactly like the consumable items from Mario Parties 2 through 4. There's the double dice and triple dice, which let you roll multiple dice, the halfway dice block, which lets you roll a 1 through 5, which kinda sucks because you can only use it on yourself as opposed to being able to use it on other players like the poison mushroom in Mario Party 3. There's the warp dice block, which will warp you to a random space on the board, and the snag bag, which steals an item from an opponent. There's also the grab bag, which will always give you 3 predetermined items, as opposed to the item bag from the previous games, which gives you random items. The only really new item that Mario Party DS has under its belt is the block sensor, which will essentially bring a hidden block to you, and wherever you land, no matter what the space type is, you'll always get a hidden block. It's a really interesting idea, playing with a mechanic that has historically just been entirely hidden and random for players, but it's kind of just a gamble whether you'll get something good for it, if it'll waste your money, or if you'll receive a star for it, which is pretty funny, admittedly. I like the block sensor, but it's not one of my all-time favorite items or anything. But hang on, there's one other item that I've neglected to mention that's caused a phenomenon in the Mario Party series that has lasted to this day. And that phenomenon is the pipe plague. The star pipe isn't anything particularly new to Mario Party. Functionally, it's the same thing as the genie lamp that came before it, so what's the deal? Why is this suddenly such a problem in Mario Party now? Well, the star pipe from this game onwards is absolutely overpowered in the item set and is way too inexpensive. Let me explain. So, I think that we can all agree that there is a hierarchy of the power of items in each Mario Party game. It's the reason why some items cost more than others, and why, depending on which game you're playing, certain items will appear in the shops depending on both your placement and the turn number. However, what helps to offset the hierarchy of these items even more is by having multiple valuable and expensive items to choose from when you're shopping. This is a huge reason as to why I think that Mario Party 3's item system is one of the strongest in the series. This game has so many items to choose from at each price point that it isn't always a no-brainer to buy one specific item. Sometimes it's a good idea to buy boo repellent and keep yourself insured from your stars being stolen. Sometimes you may want to pick up a boo bell to steal a star from a player at a higher cost but swing the odds more in your favor since you gain and your opponent loses. And sometimes you want to buy a Bowser phone because you want to watch the world burn. Having these options is what makes purchasing items a fun, strategic decision, but in Mario Party DS, this isn't really the case. In Mario Party DS, not only are the items absolutely dirt cheap in a game with a pretty inflated economy, but you are also not limited to buying just one item per visit to the item shop. You can purchase as many items that you can carry, and you even have the ability to replace items already in your inventory if you so choose. This means that for the price of 45 coins, you can then have 3 star pipes in your possession, which basically means 3 guaranteed stars as long as you're able to pay for them, which, again, in most instances, you likely will be able to. The star pipe is simply way too overpowered. There's no other purchasable item that really offsets it. The introduction of an item like the Boo Bell into this economy and increasing the price of the star pipe would have made this item way less broken. The items in Mario Party DS are fine. They're serviceable, but the balance is not the greatest, and they don't do anything particularly new that we haven't seen in the series thus far. However, that's only one half of the game's overarching item system. So Mario Party DS also features Hexes, the second half of the item system that basically replicate the orbs from Mario Parties 5 through 7, which can be set as a trap on a space. There's only 2 really noticeable differences between Hexes and orbs, and that's that they can't be used on yourself, and once a Hex has been set off by a player landing on it, it disappears, and this does include even the player who set the hex. This change makes sense due to the board's smaller size to avoid every space having a hex on it by the end of the game, and as a result, it forces players to want to put hexes down more frequently to try to own more of the board. There are hexes that steal coins, hexes that swap coins, hexes that swap spaces, and hexes that steal stars, which are all pretty self-explanatory, but there are also 2 blocks as well, the coin block and the star block. The coin block will allow players to mash for free coins, while the star block can give the player 1, 2, or 3 free stars, which is insanely powerful. These are interesting because they basically function as hidden blocks that the player gets to set, and on their screen they can tell what they are since the player who sets a hex can tell what hex is on what space on their screen, but to the other players it just looks like an ordinary trap. This really forces players to pay attention to where the blocks are placed, which I really like. However, the star block in particular is just way too good. I mean, I get 1 free star, I could understand that and think it was a cool, rare reward, but up to 3? That's a whole lot of reward for just landing on 1 space. All in all though, I think that the hexes are a cool complement to the item system that gives a bit of interactivity to the boards, but one critique that I have is that the hexes are only attainable through passing the hex space on the board, and the hex that you get is randomly determined. I honestly think that hexes should have been purchasable in the shop as well. This would have given players more things to spend their money on, and it would have diluted the pool of items that you can buy in the shops and make the star pipe less of a gimme. It could have at least made the star pipe less of a dominant strategy because it'd be harder to obtain. Overall, I think that the item system in Mario Party DS is pretty interesting, although not my favorite in the series. What I like about it is that it feels like it's paying homage to all of the previous games in the series in its own little way, with the traditional items reminiscent of the items from 2 through 4, and the hexes reminiscent of the orbs from 5 through 7. It's a neat little juxtaposition between these 2 item systems that I think is really interesting. I just wish that it was balanced just a little bit better. Before we finally move on to the boards, Mario Party DS's bonus stars also function very similarly to Mario Party 7s and 8s, with a pool of 6 different possible stars and 3 are chosen at random. The Minigame star and Green star make their return, with the Minigame star now counting who wins the most minigames rather than who earn the most coins in minigames, which was a good change since battles and coin minigames had the potential to let a single victory sway that number too much. Good on ya, Mario Party DS! We've also got the running star returning as well, but we now also have the item and hex stars separated into their own unique bonus stars for the player who uses the most of that item. And finally, the friendship star for the player who landed on the most friendship spaces. While I personally prefer the bonus stars to be a static group that players can predict and work towards, these bonus stars honestly make sense and are balanced better than some of the other games, which had bonus stars dependent on spending more coins in shops whose prices were placement dependent. I think I'm also slightly less critical of these bonus stars since they generally sway the standings less than the previous games, since you typically end up getting more stars in this game. As a quick tangent, I gotta say, what's up with Mario Party DS's stars? In pretty much every other Mario Party game, stars were a pretty stable win condition, and once somebody got one, it usually marked a huge turn in the competition. However, Mario Party DS gives stars away like it's Oprah and steals them back like a cryptocurrency rug pull. Stars are constantly flying all over the place, from star pipes to hexes to star blocks to even board events like the Star Zone. And honestly, it makes me care a lot less when a star gets taken out of the economy since it isn't nearly as impactful as it is in other Mario Parties. Mario Party DS may be just one of, if not the most unstable economies in the entire series, and funnily enough, it doesn't even have chance time. You see, I think that the reason that Mario Party DS's economy is so volatile is because this game's pacing is balanced around a 10-turn game standard, as opposed to every other Mario Party game, which is usually balanced around a 20-turn game standard. Since Mario Party DS is intended to be played in shorter sessions, it has to make sure that interesting, game-changing events occur within a shorter span of time to make each game comparably interesting to the console versions. If you think to the typical turn 10 of a console Mario Party, depending on what game you're playing, there will probably only be 1 to 3 stars purchased at this point in the game. So, to compensate, Mario Party DS gives away more stars and coins more quickly. While this does make it one of the less strategically interesting Mario Parties, it is one of the more hectic ones, and if you're in the mood for a Mario Party game where it feels like anything could happen, this is probably the game for you. So I think I've talked about board mechanics enough. Let's talk about the boards that Mario Party DS has to offer. Mario Party DS has 5 boards: Wiggler's Garden, Toadette's Music Room, DK Stone Statue, Kamek's Library, and Bowser's Pinball Machine. So yeah, this is the first time a Mario Party game has ever dipped beneath the 6-board standard, and it's a shame considering that the boards are also smaller, but it is what it is. What these boards do very well is the way that they incorporate this game's theme. Mario Party DS's theme is that all of the players are tiny, so each of these boards are regular spaces seen from the perspective of characters the size of an ant. I have a real affinity for media that takes place from the perspective of a tiny character traversing a regular setting from a perspective where climbing a set of books is a huge challenge. It's cute, and I'll never get tired of it. So, let's talk about each of these boards from worst to best. Kamek's Library is the weakest board of the bunch, and I don't think that that's going to come as a surprise to anybody who's played it. This board borrows the chess mechanic from Neon Heights and does it way worse. There are 3 magic jars that can either contain a star, 20 coins, or teeth that will send you back to the start of the board. Once a star is found, 3 new jars will be spawned. This mechanic, while luck-heavy, is an interesting way to shake up the traditional Mario Party star hunting. It's not my favorite mechanic, but it's also not a bad one. Kamek's Library is broken up into 2 main looping islands, and the only way to travel between them is to land on one of these happening spaces and draw an arrow in the direction of the way that you want to travel. The problem with Kamek's Library is probably pretty obvious. The board's layout is incongruent with its central mechanic. For starters, this layout is just garbage in general. The top half of the board is a single looping path with no junctions, and the bottom path is this perplexingly claustrophobic cluster of spaces that boils down to a slightly larger loop with some smaller loops on the outside. Most of the junctions here send you through really small, vapid loops of spaces that spit you right back at that junction again. Or you can walk around the larger perimeter and arrive back at this junction in like 2 turns. If you choose to go right at the top of the perimeter here, you have to pay 3 coins to cross this bridge of books. This book bridge mechanic honestly feels like it was added to this board without any thought about why it's there or what it was meant to do. What's the point of adding a toll here? There's nothing interesting on the other side of the board, so you would probably only go over there if there's a jar on the right side of the board. But if this is the case, why is the bridge toll so cheap? Why doesn't it increase per trip? Why can't you use this to block other players from traveling over here? This mechanic could have maybe meant something in a board with a decent layout, but in this linear loop structure, there's no way to make this mechanic mean anything without completely destroying this board's flow. It's just rotten to the core. The dual island layout just doesn't work for this chess mechanic. In Neon Heights, this mechanic worked well because the board is very interconnected and you can pay to take shortcuts and try to race your opponents to get to certain chests first. In Kamek's Library, if you're on the wrong island for a jar, it means that you likely don't have a fighting chance to get the star because you have to land on one of the happening spaces in order to travel to the other island, which could take a few turns, and by that time, somebody else has already gotten to it. However, the worst part about this mechanic is that the star pipe straight up breaks it. You may remember that Neon Heights had its own board-specific Lakitu orb that would bring you one of the chests that are on the board, which could contain one of any of the possible rewards. You could guarantee a star with this orb if you wait for the star chest to be the only one left, but the opportunity cost is waiting for the other chest to be open and risking the other players getting to the star first. This makes sense. Either way, you're getting a chest conveniently, but you're rolling the dice on whether other players will get to that star first, or if you waste your orb on a chest that may not have a star. Kamek's Library doesn't have a unique item like the Lakitu orb, so players can just buy a typical star pipe, which will always take them to the correct jar, no matter how many jars are available. This is so broken it turns around to be funny. The star pipe is already too good in this game, but on this board it straight up breaks the board's gimmick by always taking you to the correct jar completely uncontested. And to add insult to injury, the star pipe costs less than the Lakitu orb does in first and second place in Mario Party 7. Well, anyways, I digress. There are tons of happening spaces on this board, like the aforementioned spaces that transport you across the board, but there are also these 2 spaces in front of these dusty picture frames where you'll dust them off with a touchscreen and receive 20 coins if you do it in time. On the top half of the board, there are 2 spaces in front of this crystal ball that allow you to draw a constellation and receive a prize based on your performance, and 3 spaces in front of this other crystal ball, which will replace your items with halfway dice blocks and either swap your place with an opponent or swap everybody's places. The happening spaces are fine, mostly. The giveaway spaces are a little potent, like you can get a free star or star pipe from it, and the swapping spaces are really obnoxious because there's 3 of them directly in a row in a loop with very few overall spaces. Kamek's Library is a board with really bad foundational issues and a gimmick that just doesn't work with the board's layout or the game's entire item system, which is a shame because I like it aesthetically. This one hurts me because I remember liking Bowser's Pinball Machine way more back in the day, but now I just see it as okay. Bowser's Pinball Machine is a traditional Mario Party board, but the layout is both a blessing and a curse to this mechanic. It's cool because it follows the same sort of path that a pinball takes on a pinball table, moving from the bottom, bouncing around at the top, and traveling back down through the side. It's really cute, but unfortunately this doesn't really translate to a good board in its function. The junctions on this board provide very few opportunities for decisions here. The bottom half of the board is a choice between looping around this very boring section or going to the top of the board, and the top of the board isn't really all that much better. You can either choose to loop around up here endlessly or return to the bottom via the right-hand path just to do it all over again. It's a shame because this board is so cramped and these paths are so circular that it's very common for the person who just got the star to run past its next spawn on the same roll, which is really bad for these sorts of boards because the star spawn should be spread out enough to where every player has at least a fighting chance to get to the next star. The saving grace for Bowser's Pinball Machine Machine is, first, its aesthetics, but secondly, its happening spaces are pretty good. Firstly, there's a passable event where you can roll a roulette and hopefully get some money, which does inflate the economy a lot, but the economy in Mario Party DS is already inflated. Why not print some more money while you're at it, I guess? There are some spaces towards the flippers which will send you flying into this bumper and give you some coins, and this cannon at the top of the board will send you to either the left or right side of the bottom of the board, depending on what you pick. These are cute events that affect your placement in an interesting way. There's a wheel on the right side of the board that lets you wager coins and try to win big, which I obviously love, but the most memorable spaces on the board are these three near the ball launcher. If you land on one of these, Bowser will send you over to the Bowser Zone, where if you land on one of the 5 happening spaces, you will get hit by the Zero Flame and lose all of your coins and stars. Yes, all of them. Down to 0. That's tough, but I mean it's not that hard to avoid if you have a movement item, but this is such an ominous, punishing event that I almost kinda like it. Now, don't get me wrong, this is super unfair and I don't feel like the punishment fits the crime here, but you have a lot of opportunities to avoid this even if you do land on one of the first happening spaces, that I don't think that this is that bad. However, if you get lucky, Bowser will mess up when he sends you to the Bowser Zone and instead sends you to the Stars Zone, where you'll get 1 to 3 stars for free, which makes these happening spaces a real risky wager, which I actually like a lot. Bowser's Pinball Machine is a really cool board visually, but structurally I really do not think that it is very good. Wiggler's Garden is a competent standard Mario Party board. It's not great, but it's competent. This board is probably the most interesting in Mario Party DS in terms of layout. There are at least some good branching paths that allow for some decision making, but overall this board is generally structured as one large loop with a smaller loop on the inside, which limits its abilities to provide a lot of opportunities for strategic movement. The happening spaces are pretty diverse though. On the right hand side, there are these 3 tulip bulbs that contain either 1, 10, or 30 coins, and in the inner loop there are these glowing bulbs that players can shake with the touchscreen to make some money. These Venus flytraps in the center will take 5 coins from anybody who lands on them, and this piranha plant at the top of the board will take 10 coins from you if you land on its spaces, but only sometimes. Finally, these bouncy yellow flowers will launch you back to the start. This board, even down to its happening spaces, feels like Mario Party 101. It's very basic, but very inviting and simple, and helps players to ease into the mechanics of Mario Party. Wiggler's Garden is a really cute, aesthetically memorable board, but the layout is just kind of okay. DK Stone Statue is alright. This is a linear board with a static star space at the end, but instead of a changing price like Pagoda Peak, or a free star like Goomba's Booty Boardwalk, DK Stone Statue borrows from Fair Square and allows players to buy as many stars as they can afford, although the price will always remain a static 20 coins unless if Bowser changes the price to 5 coins in the last 5 turns. This is particularly impactful because it means that players can buy dozens of stars in a single trip, which is way too much and completely invalidates the previous turns of the game. This doesn't make this board irredeemably bad or anything. This event is somewhat rare and only really affects games where Bowser just happens to decrease the star price, but it does really sway the flow of the board in a way that doesn't really feel intentional. Anyways, while DK Stone Statue allows players to buy as many stars as they can afford, this board really wants to make sure that they earn and lose as many of their coins as possible along the way. The barrels on the 2 tree branches on the top 2/3 of the board will take 10 coins from anybody who is on that branch, which will take a lot of money out of the economy. But don't worry, you can stimulate the economy on the right-hand side of the board at this beehive, which will give any player who lands here a lot of free money. Just beneath that, there's Drybone's Coffin, which will either send you back to the start or to the space right before the star. These ropes will also send you either up or down, depending on which level you land on, which makes this board a lot more dynamic in terms of placement. Finally, this happening space on the right will give the player a free item via one of 3 vines. This board is really unique because even though it is a linear board with a clear start and end point, this board actually offers a branching path and some opportunities for risks and decisions. It doesn't offer a ton of decision making, but hey, that's more options than other linear boards in this series. This, combined with some pretty interesting happening spaces, make for a pretty interesting board. Overall, DK Stone Statue is a pretty good take on a pretty cool mechanic. If this board could have been expanded, maybe fleshed out a bit more in a console version of Mario Party, its ideas maybe could have worked even better than they do here. To me, Toadette's Music Room is the best board in Mario Party DS. It's got some really neat mechanics and also some aspects that I would change. First, the positives. Toadette's Music Room is a traditional Mario Party board, but with a bit of a twist. This board borrows the price-changing mechanic from Pagoda Peak and implements it into the traditional Mario Party star chasing, increasing the price with each star that is either purchased or when the star is moved via these metronomes, increasing from 5 coins incrementally to 30 coins per star. This is a pretty cool mechanic because it encourages players to play chicken with each other and really scramble to get the star when it's really cheap. A lot of the happening spaces are really cool here too, and all of them play with the music theme. The piano spaces at the top of the board will reward the player with coins if they can repeat the melody. This is cool, but the rest of the spaces affect player placement on the board, which works really well with the board's mechanics. The drums on the left side of the board will send you to a random space. The violin at the top right will bring a random player to your space, which will really mess with your opponents and presents a great opportunity to throw a wrench into their plans. Finally, the French horns on this board will send you to the space right before or after the star, which is an interesting gamble that we've seen before on other boards, but I feel like this works really well on Toadette's Music Room. So far, this board sounds really good, and yeah, it is good. The ideas here are really clever and interesting, and unsurprisingly, I love the theming. However, the Achilles heel for Toadette's Music Room is, again, its layout. Toadette's Music Room has a very deceptively boring layout. The board is essentially organized in a circle with 3 junctions that separate into 2 different paths that eventually lead to the same place. This unfortunately means that the star pursuits aren't nearly as fun as they should be because there aren't really any decisions that you can make when it comes to where you want to go on a macro level. Either the star spawns close to you on the loop, or it spawns far from you and you have to hope that you either land on one of the happening spaces to move the star or get there faster. At least on the best Mario Party boards, you can usually choose a route that is either faster or pay to go through a toll to get somewhere faster, but Toadette's Music Room doesn't really have that same level of player agency. It's not greater than the sum of its parts. There's some really cool ideas here, little nuggets of greatness. I just wish that they were included on a board that could let those ideas truly shine. Mario Party DS's boards are sadly kind of mediocre. The problem with these boards is that they're just too small to really get their ideas across in a meaningful, interesting way. I find myself almost bummed about the boards here because I can't help but wonder what a board like Toadette's Music Room or DK Stone Statue would be like in a game like Mario Party 6 or 7, with some more spaces, better junctions, and maybe even another layer of mechanical depth like the day or night cycle. There's a lot of great ideas here, and it's remarkable that a lot of these boards are playable on a DS game, much less that they actually have clever ideas that rival the console games. But ultimately, Mario Party DS has a really tough hill to climb from the get-go, being compared to the console games. On its own merits though, as a handheld version of Mario Party on hardware that posed a lot of limitations, I think that it's impressive what Hudson Soft was able to accomplish here. Speaking of what Hudson Soft was able to accomplish given the hardware, let's shift gears a bit and talk about the minigames. So, for the minigames, I'll be rating each minigame on my scale from 1 to 10 and figuring out the mean, median, and mode for Mario Party DS's minigames to figure out where it stacks up compared to the other Mario Party games. The score for each minigame will appear in the bottom right corner of the screen as we discuss them. We'll only be talking about the minigames that are featured in the standard minigame set, so we'll be omitting the boss minigames and puzzle minigames that don't appear on the board at all. But there's also a unique challenge that Mario Party DS presents: duplicate minigames. So Mario Party 8 had this same issue too, where there were a handful of minigames that were reused as dual minigames. I determined in that video that I would omit the duplicate versions of the minigames because I feel that it's unfair for these games to reuse minigames and artificially inflate or deflate their overall scores. Mario Party DS also has reused minigames, but it actually has more than Mario Party 8. In fact, every single dual minigame in this game is reused from another category. Yeah, so this means that we'll be omitting all of these duplicate dual versions from our list, unfortunately. So this brings us to a final total of 62 minigames, ironically just one higher than Mario Party 8. Mario Party DS is uniquely challenging to create minigames for given its hardware, but let's see what the developers were able to pull off. Goomba Wrangler is an interesting premise, but the touchscreen can be a little finicky when determining whether your circles count or not. Rail Riders, swipe up really fast and try to go the farthest. It's like a mashing minigame, kind kind of, but it really feels like you could break your touchscreen playing this one. Dress for Success is way too easy. Most human players will probably get all 3 right. The only consolation prize is that if you get it wrong somehow, the results are funny. Camera Shy is such a great minigame. The usage of different perspectives where everybody's looking at their own screens, trying to sneak up on one another but not get their photo taken is phenomenal. This is the sort of minigame that you could only get in this setting. Hedge Honcho is a fast-paced reaction minigame where you want to clear the leaves out but think before you swipe or else you might get stung by bees. It's good. Study Fall is like Nightlight Fright from Mario Party 5, although debatably easier because everybody falls at the same rate and you can just play chicken with the other players. Domino Effect. How fast can you react and press the right buttons? Cherry Go Round. Spin the cherry and throw it. Yep, that's about it. Trace Cadets is really finicky and very boring. It's really forgiving if you trace badly on the inside of the lines, but if you trace even slightly outside of the lines, that doesn't count for some reason. Soccer Survival is a classic avoid the hazard minigame that makes good usage of both screens. Hot Shots is a fun little shooting gallery minigame with a really unique control scheme and an interesting combo system that encourages you to think before you shoot. Call of the Goomba is a kind of cute idea, but my problem with it is that the first few seconds matter way too much. Once a Goomba chooses you, they won't leave, which just means that your performance really mostly matters in the early game. It'd be better if you had to be consistent during a set period of time and acquired Goombas could leave for a better player even after they've chosen you. Pedal Pushers is a fine little racing game, but does anybody else feel like just blindly mashing is the dominant strategy here? Also, and I might be crazy for this, but I feel like the first player has a better track. Look how short this turn is compared to every other lane. There's no other turn in the track that is this blatantly different. Roller Coasters is a racing game with weird but kind of fun controls. I just wish that the maps were longer. Get the Let Out is mashing on a DS. Maybe one of the worst mashing setups in the series, to be honest. Shortcut Circuit is a really neat concept for a coin minigame that will have you trying to read your friends' minds. Big Blowout sucks. Just blow in the mic and hope your DS registers yours first. Trash Landing is like Pitfall, but with an extra landing portion at the end. So it's not really like Pitfall. It's a neat idea, but I personally find it to be a bit too easy to land on any one of the options. Cheap Cheap Chance is a luck minigame that inexplicably ends after only one round. If you get a fish, you win money, no matter whether another player gets one or not. Wampathon is a fun, cramped survival minigame, but if you know what you're doing, you can survive the whole time almost every time. Twist and Route is a really cute racing minigame where you have to wind up your car on the touchscreen. Crater Crawl is a really boring minigame where you crawl up a volcano and avoid erupting lava. I don't know how you make that premise boring, but they've done the impossible. Boogie Beam is way too easy. You'll probably get all 10 every time. Parachute and Gallery is a fun minigame where you bump others out of the way to pass through the correct panel. It's frantic and fun. Boo Tag is a really unique idea for a tag minigame, but if you get picked by the boo at the start, you just kinda got screwed over. Dust Buddies is a really fun runner minigame where the presence of the vacuum is consistently threatening and one wrong move will get you killed. Cyber Scamper is a pretty neat platforming minigame, only truly hampered by the fact that it's an auto-scroller. Soap Surfers is like if you took bumper balls and turned it into a fun minigame. Sweet Sleuth is a candy minigame that is a little bit boring, but encourages quick decision-making and reaction. Title Fools is arguably one of the most boring coin minigames in the series, and that's saying something. Raft Riot is a pretty fun raft racing minigame. Bonking into other players sends both you and them flying, which can be really fun to mess with. All Geared Up is a platforming minigame that is unfortunately shallow. The platforming feels finicky and the minigame is over before you know it. Power Washer is a really clever minigame that is unfortunately really easy for the 3. Peekaboo is really unbalanced in favor of the 1. They can scroll so fast and see so much more that they can get to the boos before the other team can even think about it. Fast Food Frenzy is another very clever minigame that is unfortunately weighted towards the 1, although it's not impossible for either team to win. Trackstar is like End of the Line, but with some mashing and mind games. It's pretty cool, but mashing on a DS is awful, and this one is pretty easy for the 3. Shuffleboard Showdown is a really clever idea for a minigame. It's a little easy for the 1, but not too unfair, and the charm just carries it. Flash and Dash is nearly impossible for the 1. Rubber Ducky Rodeo is also nearly impossible for the One. Plush Crush is another really cute minigame, but it's also easy for the One unless if the team of 3 are insanely coordinated. Rotisserie Rampage is a slower, more boring version of Shock Dropper Roll. Nothing to Luge is not only incredibly weighted against the 3, but it's also incredibly boring. Penny Pinchers is an appropriately named Reaganomics minigame where the 3 get almost nothing. Gusty Blizzard is way too easy for the One, and it's a mic minigame. Soil Toil is frustrating when partnered with the CPU, but if you can somehow manage to get people together to play this, it can become chaotic and incredibly dependent on teamwork, which elevates it to a whole new level. Double Vision, trace your section of a drawing. Cute usage of the touchscreen. Memory Mash is a fun little memory game that mashes up ideas from Cardinal Rule and ID UFO. I just wish it was a little harder. Cube Crushers is a really cute little puzzle minigame where you race to get out of the freezer. Mole Thrill is exceptionally boring. The idea here is kind of interesting, I guess, but the execution is about as fun as digging a hole with a plastic spoon. Sprinkler Scalers is really boring and easy. There's very little competitive spirit here. Cucumber Jacks, swipe back and forth to see who can destroy their touchscreen first. At least the name is cute. Hanger Management is such a great minigame. The gameplay of needing to coordinate with your teammate and sway to avoid obstacles and clamber to the center to travel faster. The music, the theming, everything here is on point. Book It is like a team version of Snow World. It's not quite as good, but still really good. Airbrushers is a kind of boring coin minigame, but it isn't offensive or anything. Toppling Terror is a blow into the microphone and get lightheaded minigame. It's terrible. Crazy Crosshairs is a really fun minigame that requires good team coordination. Shorty Scorers is fun, but it's common for players to never score in this minigame and just punch each other back and forth. It just feels like it's missing something. Cheap Chump is an alright minigame, but you can get randomly screwed by bad cheap spawns. Star Catchers is really unfair for everybody who isn't the host. I've never played a round of this minigame where the host didn't mop the floor with everybody else. Short Fuse is the only competent mic minigame where you'll play chicken with the other players to try to get the bomb to blow up on an enemy. Globe Gunners is a fun paintball minigame with a really cute theme. Chips and Dips is an okay luck minigame. It's just not that interesting visually. And that's all of the minigames in Mario Party DS. Mario Party DS has a mean score of 5.02, with a median of 5 and a mode of 7. This unfortunately puts Mario Party DS in the number 8 spot in our rankings thus far, behind Mario Party 2 but above Mario Party Advance. I'll just say it, this is the most shocking result out of any of the Mario Party games that I've covered thus far in this series. I've always remembered Mario Party DS's minigames very fondly, and there are some that really stick out in my memory. I'm fond of the minigames that use the DS's features well, like Soil Toil and Hedge Honcho, but I really love the minigames that take advantage of the fact that each player has their own perspective and is looking at their own screen. Minigames like Camera Shy immediately stick out of my mind as the sort of Mario Party minigame that could only be possible in a portable experience. However, upon revisiting this list, I realized just how many filler minigames there are that completely got lost in the creases of my brain. The 1v3 minigames are particularly bad offenders since no 1v3 scored higher than a 6. There are just way too many of them that are so unbalanced that getting picked as one side or the other will grant you free money basically. The mic minigames also bring the mean score down since they're just flat out terrible. Thankfully, there is a no mic minigame set that you can choose, and if we calculate the mean using the no mic set, that brings the score up a lot, up to 5.22, which places Mario Party DS above Mario Party 8 in our minigame rankings. Not a huge jump in terms of where it stands in the rankings, but a substantial enough difference to show that the mic minigames really hurt DS's score overall. So maybe the minigame score was a little disappointing. However, the side content of Mario Party DS is truly something special. Mario Party DS offers a plethora of side modes to check out that honestly rival the console entries in their quality. Firstly, the Minigame Modes. Mario Party DS has a few series staple minigame modes and a few new ideas as well. Step It Up is your standard win 3, 5, or 7 minigames mode that we've seen in every Mario Party game since 2, and Score Scuffle is similar to the Decathlon modes found in Mario Parties 5 through 8, where you'll play a set of 10 minigames and be scored on your performance. These are both great entries, but the two new minigame modes are great as well. Battle Cup is similar to Step It Up, but instead of playing random minigames to a set win number, instead you'll always play 5 minigames and whoever wins the most minigames out of the set of 5 wins the cup. The cool thing here is that you you can choose what 5 minigames are played, or choose a couple and randomly select the rest. It's a cool mode, and I'm surprised that Mario Party has never had a mode like this thus far that lets you choose a set of minigames to play. However, the last mode is really clever and fun. Rocket Rascals is a minigame mode where your goal is to build a bridge from your character to the rocket. Before each minigame, a piece is selected, and the winner of the minigame gets to choose where that piece is placed. So, sometimes you may not get a piece that you need to complete a path, but even if this is the case, you still want to try to win every minigame to control where a piece that an opponent needs is placed, or you could even be super BM and block an opponent's path. Every 5 turns, a crazy cross-piece clash occurs where the winner can place a crossroads piece on any tile on the board, even replacing another tile on the board. Bowser Jr. will also sometimes pop up, wreaking havoc in a few different ways, like choosing where a piece goes in the event of a draw, or literally turning the tables. Rocket Rascals is a fun, strategic minigame mode that pits players against each other and puts strong focus on not just winning the minigames, but making smart choices when you do win to set yourself on a strong path. It's not a perfect mode. If you win the first 1 or 2 minigames, it can be very difficult for other players to catch up and come back, but other than that, I really like this mode. Mario Party DS has some of the best pick up and play minigame modes in this series. I still think that Treetop Bingo is probably my favorite minigame mode in the series thus far, but honestly, Rocket Rascals puts up a really tough fight. Mario Party DS also offers a few different 2-player modes as well. I think that Hudson may have realized how difficult it can be to gather 3 other friends with 3 DSs to play 4-player Mario Party, so it offers a variety of modes that you can play with just one other person. There's obviously dual board gameplay, although unlike in Mario Party 7 and 8, there aren't any unique rule sets for these boards and you just play them like normal. However, there are also 2 unique duel modes and a 2-player puzzle mode that you can also play in single player. First, let's chat about the puzzle mode really quickly. This mode contains 5 puzzle games from across the Mario Party series, including Mario's Puzzle Party, Bob-omb Breakers, Peace Out, Blockstar, and Stick and Spin. There's also a new puzzle minigame which you get from beating the main story, Triangle Twisters. It's okay, it's not really anything spectacular, and it kinda rewards mindlessly swapping around without doing any real puzzle solving. This mode is honestly such a neat addition to this game though that makes Mario Party DS feel like a real proper send-off, paying homage to some of the best minigames in the series and including them here as a little nod to the series past. Now, on to the 2 duel modes that you can play, Pen Pals and Desert Duel. Pen Pals is a cooperative minigame where you and the other human player have to try to trap 2 computer players by circling them in ink. If you get both players within the turn limit, you win. Every few turns you'll play a minigame and whoever wins gets to roll 2 dice blocks instead of 1, which is a major advantage. Pen Pals is a cute little mode that didn't have to be locked to 2 players. Imagine how fun this could be as just a minigame mode where you could play with 4 human players and split into teams of 2. I don't really get why Hudson decided to lock Pen Pals to 2 players only, and that question keeps me up at night. Desert Duel is more interesting. This is a competitive duel mode where each player will roll and try to own as much of the real estate on the board as they can. When you land on the space, you dig up whatever is on that space, which could either be a dice block that lets you roll again, or a star that grants you 5 points. If both players land on the same space, a duel is initiated and the winner will steal a star if the other player has one and steal ownership of the space that they're on. At the end of the game, the player with the most points wins. I like Desert Duel. It's a unique little mode that works best as a duel mode. I could see this idea working with 4 players, although it would probably be a little bit more chaotic and would be difficult to strategically implement minigames to incorporate that back and forth as well as it's implemented here. Overall, Desert Duel is a really fun mode. If you're somehow deciding to play Mario Party DS with a friend, you should try this mode out. The side content in Mario Party DS really steals the show here. Since sitting down and playing a full game of Mario Party isn't super realistic for most portable gaming situations, it makes sense that the side content is really where DS shines, especially since you only need 1 copy of the game to experience everything that this game has to offer, which was a godsend. God, do I miss the days of DS download play where only 1 person owning a game was enough to get everybody to be able to play a multiplayer game together. Now I gotta convince all of my friends to buy games or gift them to them if I want to play them with them. Simpler times. So, let's talk about Mario Party DS's beginner friendliness. Mario Party DS on paper is kind of a hard sell. I'm sorry that I keep mentioning this, but it really does bear repeating that gathering friends who all have a DS was no easy task back in 2007, and it's especially not easy today. And even if you do get to play this game with some real people, the loading screens are absolutely atrocious and the host has a pretty clear advantage in some minigames. However, when looking at the core game itself, there's a lot here that is very accessible. The boards are very simple, they're smaller, their mechanics are more intuitive and easy to understand, and the item system is simple as well, to a fault. The minigames, while sometimes a bit too stripped down, provide some really great ideas with simple controls, and the economy may be out of hand, but that might be what a struggling player needs to rubber band back up to the top. Overall, I think I'm going to give Mario Party DS 2.5 stars on my beginner friendliness meter. It's not very easy to play with people who have never played Mario Party before, and it's a very different experience all playing on the same screen. But it's definitely not unapproachable, and you will have a good time playing it if you can. If you can somehow get to play this game with some friends, my board recommendations are Toadette's Music Room or Wiggler's Garden. Their layouts are simple but provide enough decision-making opportunities to remain interesting, and their mechanics are clever and straightforward. Honestly though, as long as you don't play Kamek's Library, you're probably okay on any board in this game. Mario Party DS is a bittersweet game. It's a portable party game which poses some new opportunities, but also new challenges. It's got a lot of good ideas, but unfortunately some of those ideas are squandered by being in a game that had to scale back in order to fit on the hardware it's playing on. However, I think that Mario Party DS was a good finale to the Hudson Soft era of Mario Party. From its unique spins on past board mechanics, its mashup of older and newer item systems, and its inclusion of past puzzle minigames, Mario Party DS feels like a Mario Party game made for Mario Party fans. And that's not even mentioning its new ideas for single-player content like its clever boss fight minigames, which I didn't get to touch on in this video because I usually keep the content of these videos to the multiplayer content in each game. I personally have played a ton of Mario Party DS. Whenever you play this game, you receive Mario Party points depending on your performance and what modes you play, and not to flex my Mario Party points, but as you can see, I've played a lot of this game throughout my life. However, I just can't bring myself to say that this is one of the best games in the series. Mario Party DS was ambitious in its efforts to bring authentic Mario Party to a handheld, but in doing so, it brought with it a plethora of faults that just don't quite meet the standards that the console game set. The boards are smaller, the item system is very broken, the economy is inflated, and the minigames sadly don't excel as a cohesive set. I think that Mario Party DS is best in its side content. It's small, bite-sized chunks where you get to play some of your favorite minigames and maybe build a path to a rocket. But when fully emulating the Mario Party experience, I just can't call this one of the best. Mario Party DS rests between Mario Party 4 and Mario Party 8 on my series rankings. Mario Party 4 has way stronger minigames and an arguably better item system, but I personally feel that Mario Party DS's boards are generally better than 8's, minus Koopa's Tycoon Town, and its side content carries it above 8. This ranking was a tough one though, and well, that closes the book on the Hudson Soft era of Mario Party. Mario Party DS was the final game that the original developers of this series would create. In 2012, Hudson Soft would be dissolved into Konami, its parent company, leaving the series to need a new developer. It's a shame because even though I've got my critiques on a few of the games in this list, Hudson Soft really did create something new and special with the Mario Party series, something that many other developers struggle to replicate. So hopefully whoever follows Hudson up will carry that torch forward, right? If you made it this far into the video, thanks so much for watching this series. I greatly appreciate the support on these admittedly nerdy videos, and I'm looking forward to making even more videos this year. Thanks again, and have a great rest of your day.